Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to understanding some of the big complex ideas shaping our world.
And today, we're heading into Congress, taking a look at what they've been working on this week.
Yeah, think of it like a congressional digest for our study hall session. We're going to break down the bills, the debates, stuff that actually impacts your life, even if it sounds, complicated.
That's the plan. Our mission today is to unpack the big legislative moves. We'll look at spending, saving, debates on new tech, national security.
We want to get past the headlines, give you the key details, and maybe figure out what it all means.
Exactly. So let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. First up, the big money talk in D.C. Spending, saving, and, the national debt.
Right. It's always kind of hanging over everything. The debt's currently over, what, $37 trillion?
Wow, yeah.
So that number definitely fuels a lot of the debate. And one big thing this week was the Rescissions Act, H.R. 4.
Rescissions Act. Okay, what's that?
Think of it like the president asking Congress to hit a cancel button on spending they'd already approved.
The cancel button. Okay. How much are we talking?
The proposal was to cut about $9 billion in total.
All right, so $9 billion. Who's for this and why?
Well, supporters frame it as stopping wasteful spending, getting serious about the debt.
Okay. Any examples they gave of wasteful?
Yeah, they mentioned things like $3 million for an Iraqi Sesame Street and money for pride parades in Lesotho. They also talked about cutting funds for public TV and radio, like PBS and NPR. They called it left-wing state-sponsored media.
Ah, okay. So the argument is use that money here instead.
Exactly, for things like the fentanyl crisis or homelessness among veterans. That's the core pitch.
Gotcha. So what about the folks on the other side, the opponents?
They argued these cuts are, deeply harmful and don't really make a dent in that $37 trillion debt.
Just a drop in the bucket, basically.
Kind of. Some even called the whole act a con, like pretending to care about debt, while they argue other laws added trillions.
Which laws were they pointing to?
They specifically mentioned a massive tax break for the rich in something called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Okay, so there's a clash there.
Yeah.
Opponents saying it's like nickel and diming, regular programs while giving big breaks elsewhere.
That's the sentiment, yeah. Serving caviar to their donors was another phrase used. It definitely highlights a big philosophical split.
What else worried the opponents?
Well, cutting public broadcasting, for one. They worried about less funding for kids' educational shows here, less access to news, even impacting emergency weather alerts, especially in rural areas.
Emergency alerts. Wow.
Yeah, some really strong language was used, like fears it could even kill children if critical disaster info doesn't get out.
That's serious.
And then there's foreign aid cuts. Opponents worried that would hurt international relations and maybe let countries like China or Russia step in.
Right. And it wasn't just foreign aid or PBS, right? What about education funding here?
Good point. Opponents highlighted a cut of about $6.8 billion in education money that apparently both parties had already okayed.
So money for things like summer programs, teacher training, just stuck now.
That seems to be the concern. Also worries about cuts to family planning and contraception programs and foreign aid.
So lots of strong feelings. Political theater, ripping away healthcare, ripping food out of mouths. Pretty intense rhetoric.
Very intense. And after all that back and forth, the Rescissions Act did pass the House.
How close was the vote?
It was close, 215 ayes to 203 noes. Really shows how divided things are on this stuff.
Definitely. Okay, so beyond those cuts, Congress also spent time debating military aid. That's giving money or supplies to other countries' militaries.
Exactly. And yeah, lots of debate there too, mostly around proposed cuts that didn't end up happening.
Like what?
Well, for Taiwan, an amendment to cut $500 million in military help was rejected. Lawmakers stressed supporting allies, deterring China. The scale difference is huge. Taiwan's defense budget versus the U.S.'s.
Makes sense. And Israel. Aid there was debated too.
Yes, an amendment to cut $500 million for Israel's missile defense was also rejected. Important context there is Israel already gets billions annually, plus a big supplemental package recently.
And the U.S. used a lot of its own missiles defending Israel not long ago, right?
That's right, a significant chunk of our Tajad missile stockpile, costing upwards of $800 million.
Wow. Okay. What about, say, Jordan?
An amendment to cut $500 million for Jordan got shot down big time. Only 30 votes in favor, 400 against.
So strong support for aid to Jordan, but some argued against it.
Yeah, the few who wanted the cut argued for focusing that money back home, veterans, homelessness, suicide rates here, different priorities.
And Ukraine.
Yeah.
Still a major focus, I assume.
Huge focus. Our amendment to stop all funding was rejected, 76 to 353. Congress has already put in nearly $175 billion.
So the debate there is responsibility versus strategy.
Pretty much. Is it America's job to fund this versus needing to stop Russian aggression and support democracy?
Yeah.
Some even brought up President Trump providing weapons previously.
Interesting. And Lebanon, concerns about where the money goes.
Yeah, some worried about aid potentially reaching Hezbollah. But that amendment was rejected too. Opponents pointed to U.S. forces training the Lebanese army and fighting Hezbollah.
Gotcha. So it's often about backing allies against extremist groups.
That's the argument. Finally, there was a broader try to cut about $118 million for overseas humanitarian and civic aid by the Defense Department.
And how did that go?
Also rejected. Supporters said these programs build relationships and help U.S. security. Opponents brought up the $37 trillion debt again, saying the money should be for Americans, not foreign peoples.
So all these debates really raise a big question for all of us, doesn't it? How do you balance helping other nations with all the urgent needs we have right here at home? It's tough.
It really is. No easy answers there.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the money, Congress also focused on safeguarding the nation. And that means more than just soldiers and weapons these days, right?
Absolutely. It includes infrastructure, innovation, the whole picture. The main bill here is the Department of Defense Appropriations Act 2026.
That sounds big. How big?
About $831 billion for military and defense spending. The stated goal is, deter war and ensure our nation's security, making sure the military has top gear, good housing, fair pay.
So within that massive number, any specific investments that stand out?
Well, kind of a surprising one, maybe. $30 million approved to buy more heavy dump trucks.
Heavy dump trucks.
Seriously.
Yep. For the Army, National Guard, Army Reserve,
Yeah.
apparently essential for building roads, structures, that kind of thing. And hey, it supports local economies too.
Huh. Shows how defense spending touches everything. What about bigger infrastructure?
Okay, a huge piece is modernizing air traffic control. Remember that One Big Beautiful Bill Act we mentioned?
Yeah, the one with the tax breaks.
Right. It also includes a massive $12.5 billion chunk to upgrade air traffic control. We're talking getting away from, 1960s tech, finally.
Okay, that seems important.
Yeah.
Anything else on infrastructure?
Yeah, money for the Coast Guard, too. Strategic investments to update their ships, ports, equipment like cameras, radar, for coastal safety, fighting drug trafficking. Makes sense. And railroads. Any updates there?
Not big new projects, but proposed administrative updates to existing rules. Things like safety, accident reporting, alcohol drug policies, train communications, bridge safety, basically making sure the current system is safe and efficient.
Good, good. And what about military families? You mentioned housing earlier.
Right. Lawmakers seem really focused on that struggle for affordable housing. They're planning studies, want feedback, looking at boosting housing allowances or building more housing, plus better oversight. Quality of life is key.
Definitely. So zooming out again, how is Congress thinking about national security beyond the obvious military stuff?
It's a much broader view now. Big focus on dealing with adversaries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, staying ahead technologically and militarily.
And nuclear weapons, still a concern.
Always. Concerns about the danger, the high cost of modernizing the arsenal, emphasis on arms control, diplomacy. There was even a statement pointing out it's been 80 years since the first atomic tests, and the dangers are, quote, never higher.
Sobering thought. What about the materials needed for all this new tech?
Ah, yes. Critical minerals and rare earth elements. Super important for EV batteries, solar panels, advanced military gear.
And we rely on other countries for those, right? Like China.
Heavily. So there's a push, like Amendment SA 2067, to bring the processing of these minerals back to the U.S. for independence, security.
And that new mine in Wyoming ties into this.
Exactly. The Brooks mine, first rare earth mine here in 70 years. Big deal for prices, jobs, and national security. Also related, discussions about investing in domestic microchip manufacturing, places like Neo City.
Gotcha. And there was that weird debate about biomade. Something about lab-grown meat.
Ha! Yeah, that was a misunderstanding. Some lawmakers thought biomade was about lab-grown meat for the military and wanted to ban funding.
But it's not.
No, it actually helps with bioindustrial manufacturing, basically, making critical chemicals like explosives and other materials here in the U.S. Again, it's about domestic supply chains and security.
Okay, so when you look at all this dump trucks, air traffic control, critical minerals, biomanufacturing, what stands out to you about how they're approaching national security now? Feels much wider.
It really does. It's defense plus infrastructure plus technology plus supply chains, all interconnected.
All right, let's jump into the digital world now. Crypto, digital currencies. Congress is definitely trying to wrap its arms around this stuff.
Yeah, it's a tricky balancing act, right? Encouraging innovation versus protecting people. The Clarity Act, H.R. 3633, is a big piece of this puzzle.
Clarity Act. What's the main idea?
Supporters see it as a needed first step to bring some order and safety rules to the digital asset world. They argue doing nothing is just irresponsible.
Okay, so what kind of rules are we talking about? Break it down for us.
Sure, it defines key terms. First, digital asset, digital commodity, mature blockchain system. That's important groundwork.
Right. Definitions matter.
Then it requires registration for exchanges, brokers, dealers involved with digital commodities. They need chief compliance officers' annual reports, including policies on conflicts of interest.
Conflicts of interest. That sounds like it could be a sticking point.
Oh, huge sticking point. We'll come back to that. It also requires customer assets to be kept separate, segregated.
Okay. And what's this mature blockchain system thing?
Basically, if a blockchain system is deemed mature, the rules for offering or selling its digital money might be less strict. Creators might need less regular reporting.
How does a system get deemed mature?
Well, existing systems can qualify if they met certain criteria before the law passed, and if more than half their digital money is owned by people other than the creators. It's trying to distinguish established projects from brand new ones.
Okay. Now back to those controversies. Conflicts of interest were a big one.
Absolutely. Many lawmakers are worried about government officials, potentially even the president, owning lots of crypto or related businesses. Could they make laws that benefit themselves?
They mentioned specific examples, didn't they? Like Trump coin.
Yeah, President Trump's meme coin schemes, things like World Liberty Financial, were brought up. Critics like Mrs. Waters, Mr. Lynch, and the group Public Citizen called it a blatant conflict of interest.
Strong words. Greatest corruption in presidential history, even.
Exactly. They argued the bill doesn't do enough to ban the president or VP from owning crypto businesses, saying it erodes public trust.
What did the bill supporters say to that?
They acknowledged the concern, but suggested it needs separate ethics laws. They claimed the bill does have ethics rules, but critics didn't think they were strong enough.
Okay, so conflict of interest is one major issue. What else?
Consumer protection. Groups like the AFL-CIO argued the bill doesn't protect consumers adequately. They worried it could, quote, plant the seeds for the next financial crisis by letting tech companies act like banks without the same strict rules.
The AFL-CIO actually urged a no vote.
They did, called it an attack on working families. They also worried that poorly regulated crypto is dangerous for things like pensions.
And what about illicit activities? Money laundering.
Critics raised that too, saying the Clarity Act doesn't do enough to stop money laundering by drug traffickers, arms dealers, human traffickers. They suggested something like a driver's license registration for everyone involved, but apparently bill sponsors resisted that.
And lack of disclosure was another concern.
Yeah, one lawmaker claimed the act lets companies raise up to $200 million over 4 years just by tokenizing their security, without real disclosure, potentially harming U.S. capital markets.
Wow. So despite all those serious concerns, it still passed the House pretty comfortably, 308 to 122.
It did. Shows there's significant momentum or perceived need for some kind of regulation in this space, even with disagreements on the details.
Okay. But Clarity wasn't the only crypto bill this week, right? There was one about stablecoins.
Correct. The Genius Act, S1582. This one's focused specifically on payment stablecoins, the digital currencies trying to keep a stable value, often pegged to the dollar.
So what's the goal of the Genius Act?
To create a robust framework for issuing these stablecoins. Encourage innovation, but protect consumers. A key feature is requiring them to be pegged to the U.S. dollar and backed by high-quality liquid assets.
Trying to avoid those unstable stablecoins we've seen collapse.
Exactly. This one got bipartisan support in the Senate, passed the House too, though by a closer margin, 219 to 210.
And it included something about big tech, like Facebook.
Yeah, Chairman Hill apparently added language to address worries about big tech companies issuing their own stablecoins, trying to maintain that separation between banking and commerce.
Interesting. Okay, one more big one in this digital space. The Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. This sounds intense.
It is. H.R. 1919 basically prohibits the Federal Reserve, the U.S. central bank, from testing, studying, developing, or issuing its own digital currency, a CBDC.
A central bank digital currency. Why ban even research?
Supporters frame it as preventing an Orwellian surveillance tool. They worry a CBDC would give the government unprecedented power and allow real-time surveillance of every financial transaction.
So privacy and freedom concerns. Stopping Chinese Communist Party characteristics in U.S. money.
That's the language used, yes. Protecting personal privacy, individual freedom, free markets, and reinforcing Congress's power over currency.
Okay, but opponents must have had a very different take.
Oh, definitely. They called it misguided legislation.
Yeah.
Argued it would hurt U.S. global economic leadership, put the U.S. behind other countries.
Saying the U.S. would be the only country banning research.
Some suggested that, yeah. They used terms like ignorance, communist banking, argued it actually takes our freedom by denying Americans the choice of a digital dollar, and implied it just helps enrich the crypto bros.
So, another close vote on this one.
Yes, passed the House 219 to 210, same as the stablecoin bill. It also got tied into that idea of preventing big tech like Facebook or Elon Musk's X from issuing stablecoins, keeping banking and commerce separate.
Fascinating. So if you step back and look at all these digital currency bills together, Clarity, Genius, anti-CBDC, how might they shape the future of money, both here and globally? It seems like a real turning point.
It really does. Defining the rules of the road, but also potentially walling off certain paths like a U.S. CBDC, while grappling with huge issues like privacy and corporate power. Big questions for the future.
Definitely something to keep watching. Okay, shifting focus back home now. Beyond the big money and security debates, Congress also looked at social programs, safety, community stuff this week.
That's right. Things that hit closer to home for many people. Housing, for instance, is a huge issue. The housing crisis is real.
So what did Congress do about housing?
Well, one specific bill is the SEP-ILY Act, H.R. 4479. It aims to make it easier for homeowners to build those granny flats, accessory dwelling units, or ADUs.
Ah, okay, to create more affordable living spaces.
That's the idea. It has bipartisan support, would help people get government-backed loans for them. Just to be clear, though, our sources didn't mention any new nationwide rent control or broad housing subsidies this week.
Gotcha. But we did mention earlier they're looking at housing for military families specifically.
Right, that's a distinct focus area.
Okay, what about healthcare? Especially mental health.
Well, there's always debate on healthcare spending, like Medicaid, often tied to the debt. But there's a specific proposal, H.R. 4484 and S. 2356, aimed at boosting mental and behavioral health services.
Making it easier to get care through Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP.
Exactly. And a key change is allowing psychology trainees to provide services, supervised of course, and get paid for it.
That could really expand access, couldn't it? More providers.
That's the hope. The government would also create special billing codes and advise states. Plus, there's that interesting Circuit Rider Health program out of Cannon Air Force Base, bringing specialists like child psychiatrists to rural military families.
That sounds like a really practical solution.
Yeah.
Now, turning to safety, gun safety and storage came up.
Yes. The Gun Safety Incentive Act, H.R. 4487, it's aimed at reducing gun violence, especially involving kids.
How would it do that?
It proposes a 10% federal tax credit until 2030 for buying certified gun safes or secure storage devices.
Okay, a financial incentive. Anything else?
Yeah, it also directs the Department of Justice to create best practices for safe storage, requires safe storage saves lives, labels on gun packaging, and sets up grants for communities to teach safe storage. Supporters are stressing it's about prevention, not politics.
And there's a specific proposal for veterans, too.
Right, SA 2919. This would let the VA give out lockboxes or vouchers for secure firearm storage to veterans.
And run an education campaign about storage to prevent suicide.
Yes. And crucially, the proposal makes it clear it's not about collecting info, requiring registration, banning guns, or creating lists. Addressing those common concerns head on.
Okay. What about something as basic as driving? Getting your license back.
Good one. The Driving for Opportunity Act of 2025 aims to help people reinstate licenses suspended for unpaid fines or fees, civil or criminal.
Oh.
It authorizes grants to states $10 million over a few years to cover reinstatement costs. The idea is driving is essential for jobs, healthcare, especially in rural areas.
Though there was some pushback, mention of charities being too free with money.
Yeah, a brief mention of concern about divisive charities that gave away money too freely, perhaps related to how reinstatement fees might be covered or waived.
Interesting nuance.
Yeah.
And food security, always critical.
Lawmakers stressed investing in agricultural research, good for the food supply, good for national security, good use of taxpayer money, they argued.
Any concerns raised?
Yeah, some worried about not putting enough focus on animal health research in the upcoming Farm Bill.
And on the global front, related to food.
Sadly, yes. There were reports discussed about starvation in Gaza. Mrs. Tibbs stated the Israeli government has deliberately blocked food, medicine, and fuel, causing famine and catastrophic levels of starvation, including dozens of children starved to death, with food trucks stuck at the border.
Just tragic. Okay, beyond these specific bills, Congress covered a lot of other ground too, right? Little bits and pieces.
Definitely. Like discussions on border security, but focusing on the northern border and tackling fentanyl from China.
And that debate about the Smithsonian. Oversight versus woke ideology.
Yeah, a debate about Congress's role versus the institution's independence and what history should be taught.
And the Navy's littoral combat ships. Still debating those.
Yep. Billions spent, some want to move on, others say they're still useful against drug traffickers and in places like the Red Sea.
What about transparency, like the Epstein files?
Some lawmakers pushing for release, citing public trust and accountability, others calling it political theater, shows the division even on issues like that.
And resolutions passed too, like the one about maps showing Taiwan separate from China.
That passed the House, yes. And the Senate confirmed some key defense and judicial nominees. Also, a resolution proposed for July to be National Anti-Counterfeiting Awareness Month.
Lots of moving parts. Energy policy came up too.
Funding for the Unleashing American Energy Order, speeding up environmental reviews, boosting oil and gas through tax breaks.
Yeah.
Also, specific funding for DoD compliance with NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Protection Act.
Got it. And amidst all this policy stuff, they also took time for community recognitions, right?
They did. It's always interesting to see those, praising local EMS teams like Pasquotank County, honoring pastors like Reverend Dr. Todd Gray for 30 years of service, recognizing community leaders, coaches like Rich Maloney hitting 1,000 wins, retiring public servants like Richard LeBlanc, even interns like Claire Konecke.
Celebrating business milestones too, like Honda's plant in Ohio, or Troy Google retiring from Micron.
Right. And things like groom curriculum helping shelter dogs and teaching grooming in schools, or Arturo Vargas stepping down from NALEO after 30 years promoting Latino civic engagement, and recognizing Officer Michael Thomas, a Marine vet turned police officer. A tribute to the late Congressman Bill Clay Sr., a note about a young violinist, Tarquin, debuting in New York.
It provides a different lens, doesn't it? Seeing the local connections, mentioning things like the Love Thy City Service Day in Tyler, Texas, or the 60th anniversary of the Channel Islands Harbor, saluting the Fallen Five in Chattanooga.
Exactly. These recognitions, alongside the debates on things like the Smithsonian or NAGPRA or PEPFAR's impact on AIDS relief, show the really broad scope of what Congress touches.
So if you connect all these domestic pieces, housing, healthcare, safety, community notes, all that stuff, what does it tell us about the government's priorities right now?
It shows a real mix, doesn't it? Trying to address immediate needs like housing and mental health, ensuring basic functions like driving licenses, investing in future security through research, while also acknowledging community efforts and grappling with complex social and historical issues. It's a wide, wide net.
Wow, okay. What a week to unpack. We've gone from massive defense spending and foreign aid debates.
Right, through the really complex new world of digital currency rules.
To things like granny flats, mental health access, gun safes, and even recognizing local heroes.
It really shows how even the seemingly small details in legislation or the brief mentions in debate can have these huge ripple effects on society, on the economy, on individual lives.
So as you head into your week, maybe think about this. Where do you think Congress should be focusing its time and, let's face it, limited resources next? What's the most important issue you'd like to see them tackle, and why?
It's a great question to ponder. What really matters most right now?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, everyone.
Stay informed! And we'll be back next time to help unpack whatever comes next.